The number on the screen is wrong. That's the first thing your brain produces. Not alarm, not calculation. Just the flat animal certainty that the number cannot be real. 1,847. The integrated vapor transport reading sits in the top right corner of the model output, rendered in the same font as every other number on every other storm you've ever worked, and your hands have stopped moving above the keyboard, because 1,847 is not a number that belongs in this column. The highest landfall reading in the instrumental record is 1,102. You stare at it. Outside the window of the forecast office, Sacramento is sleeping. It is 3:09 in the morning, and the city has no idea you're looking at this number. 4 hours and 11 minutes earlier. The overnight shift starts the same way every time. You badge in at 10:45, pour the coffee that the outgoing team always leaves slightly too strong, and sit down in front of the 6 screens before the chair's even warm. There is a ritual to the first 15 minutes of an overnight shift that has nothing to do with meteorology. It is closer to the way a pilot walks the exterior of the plane before boarding, not because they expect to find something wrong, but because the act of looking is itself the discipline. You check the surface analysis. You check the upper air charts. You check the satellite loop, the buoy network, the coastal radar. California in January is never quiet. But quiet and dangerous are different categories, and tonight, at 10:51, it is merely not quiet. There is a system offshore. There has been a system offshore for 3 days. The ensemble models have been watching it the way you watch a dog that has never bitten anyone, with professional attention and no particular alarm. The National Hurricane Center's predecessor discussion from 6 hours ago called it a potentially significant atmospheric river event, with landfall likely between Point Reyes and Bodega Bay, integrated vapor transport values, forecast in the 600 to 800 kilograms per meter per second range. That is a strong system. That is a high-end AR3, maybe a low-end AR4. That is the kind of storm that floods the Russian River, closes Highway 1, and generates the kind of news coverage that people in Ohio find vaguely exotic. You have worked 14 of them. You know what 800 looks like. You refill your coffee. You pull up the 23Z Gizo FS model run, the one that ingested the 11 p.m. buoy and dropson data from the reconnaissance flight that came in late, the one that, until this moment, you assumed would confirm what everyone already expected. Marcus is at the desk 12 feet to your left, which is unusual because Marcus works the morning shift and should not be here. He stayed because the 49ers game went long, and because Marcus is constitutionally incapable of leaving a forecast office when there is a system on shore. He has a daughter at UC Davis, which is 30 miles east of Sacramento, and he has mentioned her twice tonight without appearing to realize he's mentioned her twice. He is eating the same brand of almonds he has eaten on every overnight shift for the 9 years you have worked alongside him, and the sound is familiar enough to be invisible. He is the one who notices you have stopped moving. "What?" he says. It is not a question. You don't answer immediately because you are doing the thing you always do when a number doesn't make sense, which is look for the error. You check the model run timestamp. You check the data ingestion log. You check whether the dropson that came in from the reconnaissance flight might have been corrupted. A single bad reading from 300 millibars can cascade through an entire model run and produce output that looks catastrophic and is actually just noise. This is the first, second, and third thing you are trained to do. Garbage in and garbage out. The model is only as good as the data that feeds it, but the data log is clean. The dropson archived correctly. The buoy network is consistent. The 18Z European model in Dandism, which you now pull up with hands that have developed a slight mechanical quality, the kind of precision that appears when your body knows something your brain hasn't finished processing. The European model shows 1,791. 2 independent models, same storm, same track, numbers that have never appeared in this column before. You pick up the phone and call the Western Region Coordination Center. It rings 7 times. You hang up and call the state OES duty officer. It rings 4 times and goes to voicemail. You call your supervisor, Dennis Tao, at home. His phone rings twice before going to voicemail, which means it went to voicemail on purpose, which means he silenced it, which means he is asleep, and he silenced it intentionally because he expected tonight to be routine. Outside, the first rain has started. You can hear it on the roof of the building. Not heavy, not yet. The kind of rain that California gets every January. The kind that people drive through without turning on their headlights. You look at the radar. The leading edge of the system is still 340 miles offshore. The core, the atmospheric river itself, the 2,000-kilometer corridor of water vapor, moving at altitude like a river no one can see, is still over open ocean. What you are hearing on the roof is the outer boundary, the hem. And even the hem is already producing rainfall rates that the gauges in the coastal hills are recording at 0.4 inches per hour. The core is rated at 1,847. You do the math you have not wanted to do, and the math produces a number. At the forecast track and speed, the core makes landfall at the Sacramento Valley in approximately 4 hours and 9 minutes. The valley floor, flat, low, sitting between the Sierra Nevada and the coastal ranges like a bathtub, will receive somewhere between 18 and 26 inches of rain in a 6-hour window. The rivers are already running above normal from the 3 systems that preceded this one. The soil saturated to a depth that the UC Davis Extension Service measured yesterday at 94%. There is nowhere for the water to go. The evacuation of the Sacramento Valley floor takes, under optimal conditions, 6 hours. Here's what an atmospheric river actually is. And here's why the number 1,847 means what it means. The atmosphere moves water, not as clouds, as rivers. A corridor of concentrated water vapor, typically 400 to 600 kilometers wide and 2,000 kilometers long, traveling at altitude between 2,000 and 3,000 meters, carrying as much liquid water as 15 Mississippi rivers, moving simultaneously through a column of air. When that corridor encounters a mountain range, the air lifts. When the air lifts, it cools. When it cools, it releases. All of it. In hours. The measurement is integrated vapor transport, IVT, measured in kilograms of water vapor per meter of width per second. A Category 3 atmospheric river, the kind that floods wine country and makes the evening news, runs between 500 and 700. The 2023 Pineapple Express that washed out Highway 1 and killed 22 people across the state peaked at 910 during its worst 6 hours. Scientists have modeled what a worst-case California atmospheric river would look like, the kind that, according to the geological record involves sediments in the Sierra Nevada, has happened before. In 1861, when it rained for 43 consecutive days and turned the Central Valley into a lake 300 miles long. They call that scenario the arc storm. They estimated an arc storm class event would produce IVT values above 1,400. The number on your screen is 1,847. You sit with that for a moment. You sit with the coffee that has gone cold in your hand and the sound of Marcus chewing almonds and the light rain on the roof. And you understand. Not as an abstraction, not as a forecast category, but as the specific and concrete future of 2.3 million people. And that what is coming is not a weather event. It is a hydrological event. The storm is the delivery mechanism. The water is the disaster. And the water has already left the ocean. It is already in the air. It is already moving. There's nothing left to forecast. There is only time. You set down the coffee. You open the special weather statement template. You stare at the blank field where the headline goes. Marcus is standing behind you now. You don't remember him crossing the room. He doesn't say anything for 11 seconds. You count them, not deliberately, but because the part of your brain that tracks time has become very precise in the last 7 minutes. Then he says quietly, "Is that the Euro?" And the GFS? Same track? Within 40 kilometers. He puts his hand on the back of your chair. It is not a reassuring gesture. It is the gesture of a man bracing himself. What's the Oroville situation? And that is when the second number arrives, because you hadn't checked Oroville yet, because the dam had not been in the threat matrix at the start of your shift, and your mind had been moving along the established rails of the existing threat profile, and Marcus just walked you off those rails. You pull up the Department of Water Resources real-time storage dashboard, Lake Oroville, the largest reservoir in California, the dam whose spillway fractured in 2017 and forced the evacuation of 188,000 people downstream, is currently at 71% capacity. After 3 preceding storms, the inflow rate from the Feather River over the last 72 hours has been averaging 22,000 cubic feet per second. You calculate what 22 inches of rain on the Feather River watershed will do to that inflow rate. The number your brain produces is not a number you want to say out loud. You pick up the phone again and call Dennis. voicemail. You call the state OES duty line, voicemail. You call the DWR emergency operations line, and it rings twice, and a man picks up who sounds like he was asleep 40 seconds ago. And you tell him the IVT reading, and there is a silence on the other end of the line that is 4 seconds long, and then he says, "Can you repeat that number?" You repeat it. Another silence. "I need to get my director on the line. Hold." Hold music. At 3:04 in the morning, you are on hold. Marcus has pulled his phone out and is staring at it. He has not dialed yet. He is looking at it the way you look at something you are about to do that you cannot undo. "Lena's in the dorms," he says. "UC Davis, 30 miles east, 52 feet above sea level." You understand, in this moment, the specific shape of what you are holding, because the special weather statement, the one with the blank headline field still open on your second screen, is not technically an evacuation order. You do not have the authority to issue an evacuation order. That authority belongs to county emergency managers, who take their cues from the state OES, who take their cues from the Governor's Office of Emergency Services, which is currently sending you to voicemail. What you have the authority to do is issue a statement that every emergency manager, every public safety officer, and every media outlet in the state will receive simultaneously in their inboxes and on the emergency alert terminals at 3:09 a.m., a statement that will, in practical terms, make a mandatory evacuation politically and logistically inevitable. What you do not have is the authority to be wrong about this, because the last meteorologist who issued a special weather statement that triggered an uncoordinated mass evacuation, San Luis Obispo County, 2019, a flash flood warning that the storm system ultimately bypassed, was Gary Fenwick, who worked this office for 22 years. And the evacuation he triggered produced a 14-car pileup on Highway 101, killed 3 people in the resulting gridlock, and generated a congressional inquiry into NWS Forecast Authority that took 2 years to resolve. Gary retired 6 months later. The settlement with the county cost the federal government $4.1 million. And the trust deficit, the number of people who now ignore emergency alerts because they remember the time the alerts were wrong, is immeasurable and permanent. That is what is on one side of the scale. On the other side is 1,847. On the other side is 2.3 million people on a valley floor that is going to receive, at minimum, 18 inches of rain in 6 hours. With a reservoir at 71% capacity upstream and an evacuation window that closes in approximately 4 hours. And the certainty, the 95% model certainty, that you are not looking at noise. The DWR line is still playing hold music. Marcus is still staring at his phone. The rain on the roof is getting louder. Not dramatically, just enough that you notice it. The outer boundary moving on shore. The hem of something that has no name yet because no one has given it one, because no one alive has seen one before. You look at the blank headline field. You look at Marcus. "Go call her," you say. He looks up. "What about you?" You don't answer him. You look at the screen. Your hand moves to the keyboard, and for a moment, 3 seconds, maybe 4, you hold completely still. The model could be wrong. 5%. 1 in 20. 1 in 20 storms that does not hit where the models say it hits. 1 in 20. And if this is the 1 in 20, the evacuation kills people. The panic kills people. The loss of trust kills people slowly across the next decade, every time the next alert goes out and people remember the time the forecast was wrong. But if this is not the 1 in 20, if this is the 19, if 1,847 is real and the track holds and you wait 90 minutes for the second model run confirmation and the window closes, the hold music stops. "Sir, my director is en route to the EOC. He'll be online and..." You hang up. You put the phone down. You type the headline. Special weather statement. Extreme atmospheric river event. Immediate life-threatening flooding threat. Sacramento Valley. Your hands are steady. You type the body. You type the IVT reading. You type the forecast rainfall totals. You type the words, "Evacuation of valley floor communities is strongly recommended and may become mandatory within the hour." You type the Oroville inflow projections. You type the estimated landfall window, 0720 to 0740 the local time. You do not type that you called Dennis 4 times. You do not type that you are not the person authorized to send this. You move the cursor to the issue button. It is 3:09 a.m. You press it. The system takes 1.4 seconds to process. You count them. Then the confirmation screen appears. Statement issued. Distributed to 847 recipient addresses. The emergency alert terminals at every county EOC in the Central Valley are awake right now. The duty officers' phones are buzzing on nightstands from Redding to Bakersfield. The California governor's emergency line, which was not returning your calls, is now receiving the same alert that every fire chief and sheriff's deputy and public works director in the state just received. The room is the same room it was 4 seconds ago. The rain on the roof is the same rain. Marcus is standing in the doorway with his phone already at his ear, already talking, his voice low and quick. You can hear him say Lena, and then something you can't make out. Your own phone lights up. Dennis. Then the state OES duty officer. Then an unknown Sacramento County number. Then Dennis again. You pick up. He doesn't say hello. He says, "Tell me you have the data." "I have the data." A pause. "Send it to me. All of it, right now." You send it. You sit back in the chair. Your screen is full of incoming calls, and you let them come, and you look out the window, and the rain is not yet heavy, not yet what it is going to be, and somewhere over the Pacific at 2,400 meters altitude, moving at 65 kilometers per hour, is a corridor of water vapor 400 kilometers wide and 2,000 kilometers long, and it does not know your name, and it does not know the word evacuation, and it does not know that you just made the most consequential decision of your professional life on 95% certainty in the dark at 3:09 in the morning, and it is coming regardless. It was always coming regardless. The only question was whether the city would be empty or full when it arrived. The first evacuation order, Yolo County, mandatory, valley floor below 50 feet elevation, comes across your terminal at 3:47 a.m., 38 minutes after your statement went out. Sacramento County follows at 4:12. By 5:30, the highways north and east of the city are running at 400% of normal volume in the outbound lanes, and the CHP is reporting the first traffic incidents on I-80. You are still at your desk when the Corps makes landfall at 7:33 a.m., 17 minutes inside your forecast window. The rain gauge at the Sacramento Executive Airport records 2.3 inches in the first hour. By the third hour, the American River is running at 140,000 cubic feet per second, a flow rate that exceeds the design capacity of every flood control levee on its lower reach. The Oroville inflow rate, updated at 8:15 a.m. by DWR, is 94,000 cubic feet per second and rising. You watch it from the forecast office. You watch the radar cycle every 6 minutes, and the gauges update every 15, and the model verification scores that will tell you, eventually, whether you were right or whether you were the 1 in 20. And none of those numbers have arrived yet because the storm is still happening and the city is mostly empty and the levees have not broken yet and the reservoir spillway is holding and you do not yet know. Marcus comes back with 2 coffees at 8:40. He sets one on your desk without saying anything. He sits down. He puts his headphones on. He goes back to work. You wrap both hands around the cup. It occurs to you, not as abstraction, just as the specific weight of a specific morning, that somewhere in the evacuation traffic on I-80 right now, there are 14 near misses happening. There are fender benders. There are people who left in such panic they forgot their medication, their insulin, their elderly parents in back bedrooms. There are costs already being paid, costs that exist because of the decision you made at 3:09 a.m. with a cursor over a button and 1,847 on a screen and 1 in 20 sitting in the back of your mind like a splinter. You don't know yet if those costs were worth it. You won't know until the storm is over and the levees either held or didn't and the reservoir either held or didn't, and the count of what was lost on both sides of the scale is finished. You look at the radar. The Corps is sitting directly over the valley. The colors are the deepest red the palette allows. A range the software was designed to render, but that most forecasters never see in their careers. You made a call in the dark, on a number that had never appeared in that column before. The question that will follow you out of this room, past the end of the storm, past the final reports and the congressional review and whatever happens to your career on the other side of this morning, the question you cannot resolve with any model, any data set, any verification score, is whether certainty at 95% is ever the same thing as enough. And whether if you had waited for the answer to that question, you would have been choosing the storm over the city, or yourself over everyone else.